Welcome to NFL Daily, where our fish are always 1 pound. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. I'm here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. I'm with Patrick Claybon and Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. And yes, the YouTube sensation song, 1 Pound Fish. I just learned it just a day ago, and now it won't leave my head. And most listeners will know what I'm talking about, and maybe some won't.
I learned about it 45 seconds ago. I feel like I just discovered like Gangnam Style in 2025.
I encourage you all to check out the remixes done by DJs. Put some beat behind it. It's pretty. That thing went tore through the countries.
I thought about singing it to start the show, and it would come off racist somehow, and I just decided not to.
See how easy it is, folks?
Yeah.
Do you see how easy it is?
Great call. Good decision.
I'm just fascinated, and we're going to get to every single team in the NFC today, by the way. But I'm fascinated by how like a YouTube video or a meme can suddenly like catch fire among elementary school kids in the year 2025, like 10 years after it's happening. Because this is the hottest song in the Santa Monica school system right now. All the kids are singing it.
And to think, I woke up this morning and did not even know that, and did not even think that
Didn't need to know
the
it.
information that would be coming across my radar today.
And now hundreds of thousands of people have access to the 1 Pound Fish.
Yes, because I hadn't heard of it before, so Google it, 21 million views. This is the show where we're going to go through every single team in the NFC, and we're going to talk about their draft. We're going to talk about what's ahead, anything that is left over, and I haven't gotten your guys' thoughts on the draft, at least not since day one with Patrick, but we had 6 rounds after that and none from Jourdan, and I'm really excited. I'm saying we didn't have your draft thoughts, so it's all going to be new.
None for Gretchen Wieners. Bye.
Yeah, like what is left over, what's to do. We can take it in any direction that we want. This is really my favorite time of the NFL calendar because it's the chill time. From now,
Yeah, but we had Gregg season.
middle of July.
We had
we're here.
Football. We
We're
had
here.
the regular season. We had the end of Gregg season. I kind of want to know like what this.
We had draft season. This is just chill. Let's just take it down a notch, but let's also make some great shows. And let's put 2.5 minutes we're gonna do on the clock.
2.5.
Yeah, we're gonna make it even harder. We're just gonna go over ultimately. So it's like this will bake in 2.5 minutes. Why are you laughing? And you know what we're going to do? We're going to start with the NFC South because I feel like the NFC South, it never gets the love that it deserves, except for when I'm on the microphone. So why don't we go? Let's start with the New Orleans Saints, and that's Patrick. Eric, behind the glass, you're going to put 2.5 minutes on the clock. Let's do it, New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, the New Orleans Saints 2025 draft. Just looked at in a vacuum, you could make a case for it. But unfortunately, the New Orleans Saints don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in the 2025 edition of the NFL with their previous mistakes and blunders. And I look at this, and my general question about this team now at this point in the offseason is, what is the actual plan? Kelvin Banks comes in. Presumably, Fuaga stays at left tackle. Kelvin Banks plays at right tackle. They got Tyler Shuck. Regardless of what you think about Tyler Shuck, he's a quarterback who has experience playing quarterback, extensive in terms of years.
Very extensive.
He's only actually started 25 games, but in terms of his experience of the time on earth,
right?
He does have that relative to the other prospects. I did like the pickup of Devin Neal out of Kansas. I think he can add something to the backfield where it's really been Alvin and then a significant fall off, which there's always going to be a fall off. But generally, considering the quarterback's comments and his circumstances, what is the plan for the first
keep their
year head coach
jobs?
of New
It's the same plan as always. That's it. There's no plan beyond this year. It's just to keep our jobs another year. And on paper, it's very similar to the plan that they had with Dennis Allen, which I think in a perfect world is we got a lot of players on defense. We have invested in our offensive line. We think our offensive line is going to be good enough. Alvin Kamara is going to run the ball, and that's the type of team that we're trying to be.
I do like that this is sort of a very, waspy reaction to the Derek Carr situation where it's like, we're going to pretend that issue doesn't exist. We're going to go get a bridge quarterback in Tyler Shuck. We're going to get a massive human being to help protect him in Kelvin Banks Jr. because we have watched the tape of him under pressure. And I actually really, one of my favorite pick that the Saints had in this draft was the Oklahoma linebacker, Danny Stutzman, because he's such a Saints player to me. Like he flies around, he's aggressive, he's tough. So they're continuing to add some youth to this defense as well as continuing to beef up the offensive line. And they have a bridge quarterback, and we're just going to pretend Derek Carr is like...
Well, you can't pretend. He was on camera at an event at a church where he got really mad about how the media has portrayed it and whether his injury is real or not. And to that, I just think, like, where did the injury information come from? It probably came from Derek Carr's camp.
Yeah, he's the only person that knows. If there's an issue with how it's being covered, enlighten everyone. Not just wait
Good
for
place to do that, enlightening, a church.
Yeah, the church audience or Twitter.com.
Or NFL Daily. Come on. We've had him on before. Let's do it again. David came on, of course, with Derek back in around the NFL. All right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers, Jourdan.
Yes. I saw the direction and the vision. They wanted to go with Ted McMillan. Hear me out. The Panthers wanted to finally get their own Mike Evans after years of getting punished by Mike Evans. Their defense has and had too many questions to expect all of it to get fixed just in this draft. They made some moves in free agency as well, but I do like that they went offense and best player available with their top pick when they were unable to trade back. As you heard, they did want to trade back. Here's where I think the Panthers are fine to good. Quarterback, offensive line, tight end, receiver, and actually with Derek Brown back from the injury, I think their D-line, and specifically the interior of that D-line, are going to be fine. But you really have questions about their defensive backfield. I know they've made some moves. I would love to see Trevon Moehrig in the slot. He played very well in the box. But I have concerns about the depth of their corners and safeties and inside linebacker.
Fair. I think fine to good might be projecting that Ted McMillan is the guy right away that you hope that he is, which with their recent receiver picks hasn't been the case. He's obviously better than Jonathan Mingo or Terrace Marshall or Xavier Legette, but it's hard to forget about those. Hunter Renfrow is now on the team. We found out that he had an autoimmune disease that got him down to 150 pounds. And so that explains why he wasn't in the NFL. So that's an interesting player to watch who could also help out Bryce Young. If he's back to being Hunter Renfrow, that would be amazing. Although, to be fair, he was looking like he was declining with the Raiders, but I don't know if that was impacted by his disease. So shout out to Hunter Renfrow. Good to have you back.
Yeah, glad to have him back. One of the better route runners in the entire league with respect from all over the league. My thing was, because the initial reaction to the Ted McMillan pick that I had was just the defense was so bad.
Yes.
So they come back and they get Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, where I know his counterpart at Texas A&M was the more athletic prospect, but probably the safer floor was Nick Scorton, and that's really like the player that they need, because it's kind of the whole plane is built out of like what's remaining of Jadeveon Clowney right now in terms of getting some pass rush. And so like it's tough to go into a season like that, but you see the vision. It's just Ted really has, like T-Mac, excuse me, as the young man would like to be called, really has to go off for this to look like it was the right.
I think they took the highest ceiling player like available at every pick. So shout out to Eric Eager, former PFF employee, now the analytics guy over at the Panthers. I don't know if he made those picks, but if he contributed, I like what you did.
I do know one thing. I know Dan Morgan is listening to him, and I think that's a smart thing to do.
Ike Ekwonu, by the way, got a fifth-year option picked up.
Good for Ike Ekwonu.
I will go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Put it on the clock. And yes, we're going to try to get in every little bit of information into these 2.5 minutes, even if it's not draft related. We can talk about anything we want. Bucks. I would have loved if they had gotten another edge. But when you look at taking Emeka Egbuka in the first round, it's like, oh no, we have too many weapons. It's like, oh, we have too many good receivers, short and long term, that all play different but complementary roles. Like, oh no, I have to say it's a great day for the Baker believers out there, like yourself, Patrick, because I've been feeling it all offseason. This team is like first-tier Super Bowl contender right now. Baker, to me, is the biggest question that they have. Because even Edge...
You can't help himself.
Even Edge, Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, Chris Brazzell was a second-round pick. Well, it's true, though. You gotta be so good unless you have a top 5 quarterback to win the Super Bowl, right?
He's playing to type. I mean, it's fine.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
The bit lives forever.
The bit lives forever. I loved I like most of their drafts, to be honest with you. I don't think they have many bad drafts. And I really liked, we suggested this. We were wrong on a lot of things about our mock draft, Greg, but we did talk about the potential and the real possibility that the Bucs do add a player with such upside and long-term potential as a Chris Godwin. And Emeka Egbuka will go and play for them right away, even though they do have a full room. I do believe that the ceiling of this team is true contention, not just fringes of contention.
And the message that I'm getting from this particular draft is that Light and Bowles feel confident with the development of the front 7 picks that they've taken in previous years, where it's not as much of this, we have to do this. We can take an opportunity with Egbuka there early on, where I feel like we also see Baker as the same. Like, I think the positions that we have him at, maybe in our quarterback rankings, that maybe like a difference of 3.
I was trying to fight for him on Quarterback Island all freaking year, so we're clear.
What continuity do they have? The entire offensive line is back. All the skill position players are back. You're just adding Egbuka to this mix. It's pretty awesome. And the second and third round quarterbacks, Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish, they are 2 guys who I think Todd Bowles has a vision for. They've had their hits and misses in the secondary, but I'm looking forward to what they add to the team.
Well, what I especially like is doubling up at these defensive positions where they did need help last year.
I like the double up strategy in general. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons.
Speaking of doubling up, the 2025 Atlanta Falcons, and I will make an impassioned defense of Terry Fontenot trading up. I understand the future first feels like a lot. If they're playing for somebody else, then it doesn't necessarily matter to Terry Fontenot or to this edition of the Falcons. They trade up to get James Pierce Jr. So whether it's Jalen Walker or James Pierce Jr., if one of those guys pans out, ultimately we'll look back and say that this draft was a success. They didn't have a lot of picks. They only took 5 picks, but they also get Xavier Watts, the safety out of Notre Dame, who was one of the top recruits in the country when he initially committed to Notre Dame. Has a lot of production there. And they've been waiting for that edge for so long. I think it's perfectly reasonable and worthwhile if they expect that pick to be in the 25 through 32 range to go ahead and trade it and take a shot and get an athletic guy who can cause a lot of problems for quarterbacks.
Now, I do have a little insight on this as someone who was in the room on the other side of that trade when they were making the move with the Rams. First of all, the Rams were completely surprised by the fact that someone came in. They were trying to trade back and were going to trade back. They were completely surprised by the fact that someone was willing to offer a first-round pick. But in watching what the Rams actually did a year prior in doubling up along the defensive front in Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. Now, this is a different scenario because it's not 2 teammates who have that chemistry together, but they ran some of the same tests and the same analyses and trying to figure out what 2 players would we like to pair together in order to fix this. And I think with James Pierce, there was questions pre-draft about like how much he loves football, all of this stuff. Well, when you're around Raheem Morris, you're going to love football. And so I think that that's where they also factored in the character of the head coach.
I think the issue is just how many draft nicks thought James Pierce isn't a natural football player, that he has the speed, but needs a lot of work, a lot of refinement, a boomer bust player. And all those people might be wrong, and the Atlanta Falcons might be right. I think that was more what people were mad at. I do worry, though, they added no draft picks, no significant free agents on offense at all this offseason. It was all defense all the time. So the offense, to me, is just as much a Terry Fontenot does he keep his job test as anything, because that's the group that he's been building up for 5 years, and they were like, you're good over there. It's not like they were the best offense in the league last year, so they better be great on offense.
They had a guy just making his first 5 starts in the middle of a playoff run.
Also, Kirk Cousins might be stuck. He might actually be stuck in Atlanta. Someone save Kirk Cousins.
Pretend the problem doesn't exist.
Right. Let's go to the NFC East. Next up. Why don't you get us going, Jourdan, with the Cowboys?
Oh, man, am I excited about this. I've thrown a lot of shade at the Cowboys over about the past year, particularly on this show because of how they handle their contracts or how they pretend that they're not handling their contracts and then all of a sudden fly through and overpay at the last minute. But my God, can these guys draft? Like, kudos to Will McClay. Take a bow. This is his time. What the regular season is to you, Greg, this is Will McClay season for the Dallas Cowboys.
Boom.
I still don't know who can truly be a difference maker at running back on this team, and that clearly the team is saying it wants to run the ball in 2025. Hello, Tyler Booker, by the way, is really going to help them. And a lot of the local chatter is also about needing a number 2 receiver, but I absolutely love the 3-pick punch that they started with Booker, who's a guard out of Alabama, who I think is going to be a monster. Donovan Izuraku out of Boston College, and Siobhan Revell out of East Carolina. I love that they addressed trenches, and then they also addressed another position that they need to keep replenishing at cornerback. So I liked this draft a lot.
Amari Cooper is being rumored to possibly be on his way back, which would be a very Cowboys move. And yet, I think the best move and a really necessary move, because they wasted a pick. I think it's going to be a waste on trading for Jonathan Mingo. Like, they don't have a second receiver. They don't have an exciting running back. All these quarterbacks that got helped out, we talked about it with Daniel Jeremiah on our last 40s and free agents. Dak Prescott was not necessarily one of those guys. I know Tyler Booker could help, but the pass rush is pretty exciting.
Yeah, the opportunity there, and to double up on what Jourdan said about Siobhan Revell, because the circumstance and the player makes me think of Antonio Cromartie coming out of Florida State, where he had the ACL tear, kind of pushes him down the board a little bit. And here's Revell, like, dealing with this injury, who's like 6'1", 205, that can flat out fly, makes a lot of plays on the ball, kind of takes them back to that DQ era of the Cowboys defense with guys that can make plays on the ball. Jaden Blue might get some push in the backfield. Like, maybe that's your answer at running back. I think generally they need to decide that they want to run the ball, and after the coaching change, we're going to get a little more of a commitment to that. I feel like it's not going to be like a late season. Cooper Rush has got to play it. Let's just pound the rock.
It's a big chance for Eberflus to come back in a big way, because this is going to need to be a defensive team. For all the pop, and we can pause and take a little extra time for a few teams. Maybe we will here. We'll take a timeout here. Let's just take a timeout on the old Cowboys.
Glad to know we get them.
Yeah, sure. Why not? The Giants are going to get a lot of pop for their pass rush. We're about to talk about them. Micah Parsons, Demarion Overshone, got to get healthy. Ezeraku and Dante Fowler. I mean, that's pretty good. I might take that actually over the Giants group.
Not bad.
Because it has Micah Parsons. I mean, any group that starts with Micah Parsons, that matters. And then I did want to mention, Jerry Jones went out of his way to throw some shade at Trevon Diggs and how hard he attacked his rehab. There was a setback in his rehab from his knee injury. He had another surgery, and there's worries about him long term. And he said something like basically that he hopes he approaches this rehab better than he did the last one, which was like, whoa. But Jerry's just saying stuff out there.
I mean,
as usual.
What was the presumed problem with the rehab?
Well, according to some reporting, just that he didn't work hard enough, essentially.
So he re-injured his knee not working hard enough? That's the reporting from the people who do not have Trevon Diggs' knee?
This is logic out of the star, you know?
All right.
Yeah.
I feel like you had more to say on the Cowboys too, Jourdan.
Oh, I just love that they kind of gave Eberflus some very Eberflus players.
Yes.
Some of the D-tackle talent that they have, including, the guy that they drafted out of UCLA. I do think that he, in terms of this like one gapping type of really like stout front with edge rushers flying off the outside.
7th round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I think I like that they keep they're playing to type with the coaches. They're not just saying, okay, I like this about Will McClay. He's kind of always done this, where he's like, we're gonna go get good players that also fit what our coaches want, versus we're gonna go get good players that I want or that Jerry Jones specifically wants. They do a little of that too. But I do like, it seems like the communication, like he especially knows how to communicate with that coaching staff on specific needs and wants.
I'm fascinated to watch them. And speaking of playing to type, NFL media taking an extra minute or two on the Cowboys, a little too cliche. I apologize.
I mean, to be clear, I've spent a lot of time this year ripping them. So.
That's fair. Let's go New York Giants. The pass rush is so deep there. And I think everyone thinks of the big names initially, Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau has now got the 5th-year option. But you kind of forget that they also signed Chauncey Golston. You also have Dexter Lawrence, of course, and then as a Pro Bowl player. And then they also drafted Darius Alexander as a defensive tackle. So they're not just going like deep on the edge. They're deep in the middle. They're with guys that have different types of skill sets, like Chauncey Golston, maybe a little bit more of a run stopper there. It is on Shane Bowen, their defensive coordinator, who did not play well. I mean, who did not coach his group up well last year. And at the end of the year, the owner, John Mara, said, well, to be frank, like, our defense was really disappointing. And that guy is still the coordinator there. So he better deliver because he's got some players on his side.
It's just as great as the idea of this Giants pass rush is. Like, the quarterback situation is a mess. Like, you have an extra quarterback that could contribute. Like, what role does Jameis actually serve in New York at this point?
Anything you want. Anything you can imagine.
Well,
if it was an actual competition, I would take my chances with him over Russell Wilson in 2025 and Jackson Dart, for that matter.
Same, exactly.
But he might end up as the New Orleans Saints starting quarterback. That's my
Oh my God.
But like, Brian Daboll is going to have like a weird quarterback situation to determine whether or not he is just Mike Shula to Cam Newton's Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point.
What a good reference. Holy cow. That was a throwback. Holy
You win. Patrick won.
incredible.
He's wearing the NFL Network polo. He's winning.
What a freaking poll. Is your name Tyler Booker? Am I right? Am I
Hey!
It's because the quarterback situation has been so bad. 4 out of the last 5 years, they have been 30th or worse in total offense. Like, absolute bottom of the league. And I understand there was that year they go to Minnesota, they win the playoff game, and it's like, projections are up. Nothing. And injuries aside, like, it at least have something, and there's been nothing.
My prediction is that Daboll and that coaching staff, they're going to want to show very quickly that Jackson Dart, there's a reason that they became, reportedly enamored with him through the late stages of the process. There's a reason why they traded up to go get him. I think they're going to use him in that versatile run and throw kind of situation while he settles into being a passer.
Yeah, over under week, I'm going to say 4.
Ooh, that's tough because it's New York, so he's going to have to try extra hard, Greg.
They also did very well in terms of like the draft grades and stuff. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked at any draft grades, but I just assume because whenever a team drafts a lot of guys then they do well in the draft grades. And they drafted Scadaboo, who I'm really excited about. They drafted Darius Alexander, who I think got a lot of pop throughout the process. Yeah. And then even Mbo, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Marcus Mbo, in the 5th round. Like, it's just another guy who got a lot of pop throughout the process. So when you draft guys, people know you get good grades. All right, let's wrap up the NFC East with the Washington Commanders, Jourdan.
Yeah, so I liked their draft. It was very small. They didn't have a lot of picks. It's going to take them a little while, I think, to rebuild like the young core of this roster. We know that. That's why they go out and spend in free agency on veterans. I do actually want to open here with some news before we get to the picks. So this week, DC representatives and Commanders team representatives announced their agreement to build a new 65,000-seat football stadium on the current RFK Stadium site in Northeast Washington, which seemed to be what a majority of the fan base wanted. And it still needs approval from the DC City Council, but if approved, it is scheduled to open in 2030.
We could be going to a Super Bowl there. Now, there's been a lot of false starts with this stadium process, so I guess I won't take it as official until it's official, but it would be another indoor stadium.
Yes.
A lot of outdoors to indoors. Now, Buffalo's going indoors. Washington's going indoors.
It'll have a roof, obviously, but then also there is going to be a designated affordable housing allocation around the district of it. And then also 30% of the property needs to be allocated toward green space, and some of it will go along the riverfront. And what I thought was interesting, because we're seeing all kinds of different stadium promises and all of that, but the Bowser administration said the Commanders' contribution to the new stadium will actually be about 76% of the total cost and 24% with the city contribution. And if they go over any of the projected costs, the team is responsible for paying those costs. So juxtapose that with the Titans' new stadium, which is 60-40. Public investment is 60. Or the Jaguars stadium, which is 50-50.
I hate any public investment.
Yeah.
I know.
On.
Why don't you just go build a $5 billion stadium in the backyard?
Yeah, well, I'm not a billionaire.
No, I'm saying the billionaires should be doing this.
Exactly. Shout out to Matt Gay. Got a job, 4.5 guaranteed to be the Commanders' next kicker. Big news. on Tuesday. I was excited about that. I thought they have had a weird offseason. I haven't loved it. I thought Josh Connerly even was a little bit of a weird pick just because you immediately have to move him to right tackle. Same thing with Brandon Coleman, who was their left tackle last year. So
I love the Trey Amos pick. I think he
like
makes that
one.
defense better instantly.
And it's kind of a Marshawn Lattimore insurance policy, which you need with his injuries.
But it's kind of like the early reactions to Severance and Andor season 2, where the first edition was so incredible that you look at this offseason and it's like, where's the groundbreaking shift where it's just like this is life now, Commanders.
Well, hopefully it'll be more like Wired season 2 in the long run, which at the time people were like, what is this? This isn't the show I signed up for. And then over time, I think people appropriately appreciate it. Yeah.
One time when I covered a game at the Commanders Stadium, it was raining and rain came pouring into the press box and ruined several computers.
Yes.
It's really fun.
Hopefully at this new stadium, they can figure out that the plumbing doesn't, go all over the fans.
I think a possum lives up there too.
Hey, shout out to him.
Hopefully he or her
Didn't some sewage
didn't
people get toilet water on them and whatnot?
I believe so.
That was fun.
Because like the flooding
collapsed.
issue also included the upper level laboratories.
Shout out to Jourdan Daniels, man, who just came in there
saged
as
the
a
place
rookie and
in
just
the
gave
place.
great vibes to a place that hadn't had it for decades. All right, speaking of great vibes, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. I assume the vibes are still good after only a portion of the team went to the White House.
I mean, we talked about having to sage a historically harmful venue. The Philadelphia Eagles traveled to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. A portion of them did. Some new Eagles didn't make it yet. Jahad Campbell got drafted.
Yeah.
Which elicited a lot of the typical "how he does it again" reaction because you have a marquee player from a big program who had production in college that had an injury concern that caused him to fall down the board. The Eagles were able to snap him up. Then they get Makuba out of Texas, who was the less athletic safety in that Texas secondary. But he goes there. The athletic score is on him not too great, but I will point out
solid player.
That Brian Branch also had a low relative athletic score. A few guys have at that position that have plenty of success in the NFL. And this is the draft of a team that won the Super Bowl. But despite that, they have 10 picks. Like, there's a lot of picks for Howie and the Eagles. They get Kyle McCord, another veteran. Like,
of course
I call them veteran. Like a longtime college starter that threw for 1 billion yards last year and the year before to come in and fill up a backup role, just a Super Bowl champ draft.
Quarterback factory. I do want to get back to the White House thing, but I did notice how they took 3 big swings late on the offensive line. 2 at tackle. One was Cameron Williams, and Miles Hinton was another one. And I noticed the Ravens did that too. A couple teams did it, taking these big swings late on like 2 or 3 tackle prospects because it's so hard to find these linemen. Can you develop them in a couple of years? It seems smart.
I wanted to talk. As you guys were talking, I was pulling up his profile. Dane Brugler wrote a great write-up over on the Beast about Drew Kendall, the center, where I think in a couple of years, because of how much he's already done, he was at Boston College. So within that Bill O'Brien offense, and that run game, especially where they're doing a variety of different things, I feel like low key, there are a couple guys out of Boston College on that offensive line this year that I think are going to be really good pros. And Drew Kendall, to me, is a total, you're going to forget where he was for like 2 years, and all of a sudden he's going to emerge as like one of the next really, really good offensive linemen.
Like Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, like Cam Jurgens. I mean, they keep refilling using this same formula and this same strategy, similar to a lot of teams actually had Reds, which means they took him off the board because of the injury concerns of Jahad Campbell, who is one of the best players in the draft, but the Eagles are going to find a way to make it work.
Let's take a timeout here. We'll give it to the Eagles too. We got 3 to use. Drew Kendall, by the way, a 5th round pick. So it is testing Stoutland University to take these late round guys and see if they can become big time starters. But it has been reported that they tried to trade up as high as to the Chargers at 22. That was, I believe, trying to make a deal for Jahad Campbell, who we had in the top 10 of our mock draft.
Because without the injury, he is in the top 10.
Right, and in theory could start over. We'll see about Nakobe Dean getting healthy, but that's a tough recovery that he's going to have. And so Jahad Campbell might not be ready for week 1 either, but at some point he could be starting. Like, I like that they're not dogmatic. This is a team that now is spending on inside linebackers and running.
There it is.
Kind of like it's the whole Moneyball thing that, like, once everyone starts copying what you do, you need to find the margin somewhere else. Howie does it again!
There it is.
And then, yeah, I did appreciate that Jalen Hurts and a lot of the players were not at the White House, and then a lot of the players were. A lot of the defense wasn't. The wide receivers weren't really there. The quarterbacks weren't there. That was kind of how it broke down.
I think that Jalen Hurts, who was on the cover of Time magazine recently, has carried himself really, really well this offseason. I mean, the spotlight has never been more on him, especially after winning the Super Bowl. And I think that, and the contract. And so I think he has really carried himself well this offseason.
Yeah, and the player that carried the team really for the majority of the season in Saquon Barkley, who was in a labor struggle of his own along with his fellow running backs a few years ago, has made a decision, right, to be on a particular side of history. But the one thing that leaps out to me is the idea that the visit was politicized. And I can't think of a more apolitical institution than the building at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and the office of the president, which is inherently political, which everything is political. The way that we determine who should be treated a certain way and how they should be, everything is politics. And so it's an asinine thing to say, and it's very disappointing from one of the best players in the NFL.
It is, and I'm sure the rest of the Eagles organization, including ownership, everything is just happy that that's over and that they can move on. We are going to move on.
The Giants started weighing in even. My God.
Yeah, the Giants trying to correct the record. Let's go to the NFC West and the NFC North right after the break. Back on NFL Daily. It's the best division in football. Maybe 3 of the best 5 teams in the NFC, certainly on paper. And the Bears with an argument to have one of the better rosters as well.
They won the offseason again, guys. They did it.
I know, but it looks so believable this time. Yeah. Let's start with the division winner. I'll get us going with the Lions. It's Lions 2.0. And I think they're at the point, and they have been at other points in their process of, like, can we just identify players better than other teams can identify players? Because Tyreek Williams, he felt like a pick that was made maybe after the position group that they were focusing on got taken a lot. Tyreek Williams, who's more of a nose tackle, exciting player, 28th overall. Tate Rutledge goes a little earlier than you would have expected, guard out of Georgia. And then they really were feeling themselves trading 2/3 to get Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver prospect out of Arkansas, without a lot of production. And maybe they'll be right. Maybe they'll be wrong. Do you think the Lions, Patrick, have tipped that all over into feeling themselves too much category?
No, because I think you could have made that case right after the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. That's like, they don't know that this team is all vibes, and no, this is their strategy, and it has worked. If Brad Holmes wants to draft me, like, I'll be like, well, I'm assuming Brad Holmes has a plan for what I'm allegedly going to do. And I get the criticism about using a future third to trade up and take somebody in the third. But if they have that number and that value on Tesla, however you say his name, I don't, part of me doesn't want to call him Isaac.
2/3, to be fair. 2/3.
Let's call him Isaac Newton.
Yeah, right.
Generally, 2/3 for 1/3 feels bad.
Yeah,
yes,
it
Isaac
does.
and they did it last year.
The gravity of the pick.
They did it last year too with a guy that I'm going to be watching carefully, Giovanni Manu, which was a very risky pick where they traded a third this year to take a fourth last year. He didn't play, but he needed a developmental season. They, by the way, might be changing his position, which isn't the greatest sign, to guard.
It's been a long time since this has happened, but I think we need a quick reminder that Brad Holmes was the original person who championed a young receiver with very interesting traits out of Eastern Washington in the 3rd round.
There it is.
Named Cooper Kupp. And so I'm not comparing the players one-to-one, but Brad Holmes knows what he is looking for in the receivers he wants on his football team. And that's why and you see this with James Gladstone now, you've always seen it with Les Snead, that Brad Holmes, if they like a guy, they're going to go get that guy. And I thought it was like a little bit of nice poetry that the trade happened to be between Brad Holmes and James Gladstone, two people that do abide by that principle. You like the guy, go get the guy.
Also, guys who abide by a principle, perhaps F them picks sometimes. It's more about the actual humans that you're going to get. If you need to use those picks to get those humans, use them.
And you know what? Freaking feel something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
because if you have a good roster, you can't have like 27 like I understand the hypothetical value that these players have, but like everybody can't make the team.
Feeling things is good. That reminds me of Eric Spoelstra, the Miami Heat coach, spoke after they were swept out of the playoffs, and he said about the team, it was a fun group to be around. I felt fully alive. As alive as I felt in a while in the regular season, which like relatable on some level, not a great advertisement for the NBA regular season on another level, and then maybe a sign that he should take like a year off too.
Maybe he should
all
go
of the above.
Like have management above him, not be maniacal and constantly undermine his actions as a head basketball coach.
I love a little Miami Heat talk in the middle of the show. Let's go to Jourdan and the Minnesota Vikings.
You guys, the big news of the week.
Oh, I'm ready.
JJ McCarthy taking reps at OTAs.
Yes.
The era is upon us, unless, they change their minds and Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Just kidding.
Rude.
Otherwise, they only had 5 draft picks. It was a thin class, but I think they have a strong roster already. Kind of goes to what we were just talking about. If you have a really highly competitive roster, you're really looking to fill in very specific qualities and a little bit of depth. They needed help up front on their interior offensive line, so they picked up Donovan Jackson to help at guard. They might have reached a little for him, but again, goes right into what we were just saying. If you like the player and he fits both a need and he's the best player on your board at that need, I say go get him. My favorite pick of theirs, Kobe King, the inside linebacker out of Penn State, who they took in the 6th round, actually with the pick they got from the Los Angeles Rams at 201, who I actually projected the Rams to pick at 201, so I'm kind of like tickled by that personally. You're rubbing off on me, like it's about me after all. He's kind of this.
Wait, I'm just rubbing off on you and just being more self-centered, is what you're saying?
No, that I can share my wins. As somebody who has societally just been in a box, like I can finally share my wins a little bit more. No, but he's kind of this old school linebacker that plays like his face off, and I can't wait to watch him with Brian Flores. And I think the Vikings, other than the questions about the quarterback, who we have to see play real football, I think the Vikings are going to pick up a lot of ways that they...
You did nail that Bucks take a wide receiver thing too. I saw how you tried to be nice about it and say, we mentioned that the Bucks may take a wide receiver, but it was you. It was you specifically.
Thanks,
I almost kind of disagreed with you at the time.
What an ally.
And then I was an idiot. I think this is a win now team. I love this roster. I really love this roster.
Yeah, and we get to see the growth and the excitement from the rookie quarterback. I guess I'll call him a rookie. He didn't play. So yeah, he's a rookie to me. There was the whole Ben Simmons argument in the NBA. I think he's a rookie.
Do you guys think he looks like the guy from Stranger Things, Steve the babysitter? JJ McCarthy kind of looks like, and he's like Dejo, I think is how you pronounce it. Did a really, really great cover of a Haim song recently.
Yeah.
Don't you think he looks like Steve?
I rarely think people look like other people.
Steve the babysitter.
I do think like it was like a jump scare when JJ McCarthy suddenly appeared on the sideline.
The sideline, that's what made me think of it.
And it was like, whoa,
yes.
He still looks young, but like, did he grow? Like,
the hair, it's the lettuce, man. He's got the Steve lettuce, I think.
I mean, he is literally 4 years younger than Tyler Shuck. Like, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right?
You're using the Tyler Shuck scale of age, henceforth.
Always. Let's go to the Chicago Bears. It's Patrick Claybon's new favorite team for the next 2.5 minutes.
Yes, it's my favorite team. I can make a case that it's one of my favorite teams just in general because I see what the plan is. You start the offseason by addressing in free agency. The offensive line gives you some luxury to come in and make a draft pick. They go with Colston Loveland, which my initial reaction was that Ben Johnson, if Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, or the Detroit Lions are there and they want to take a tight end, I think they would take Tyler Warren. I think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell would have wanted Tyler Warren. But this is an example of Ben Johnson as his own entity, divorced from the Detroit Lions. The way that this past game is going to look. And so, like, long term, you don't know what the DJ Moore situation is going to be. Luther Burden III comes in, a guy who we didn't really get to see do a lot of downfield stuff, but when he did do it for Mizzou, he executed very well, had the walk-off game winner against South Carolina. And so, like, offensively, the Bears start to make the sense that we thought that they were making last year, but from a more realistic standpoint, which I love.
And another quietly on my radar, going to be, I think, a very good pro, particularly with the right coaching staff, Boston College offensive lineman, Ozzie Trapilo, whose father, may he rest in peace, also played in the NFL. I think that the
High
Bears,
pick.
But I think, I know actually for a fact that he was actually even higher on a couple teams' boards than where he was picked. And he reminds some people of some of these long tackles that are playing right now in the NFL. And I think that it's so interesting because they found guys who you can immediately see, who they come after in Luther Burden and Ozzie Trapilo, or immediately where they help in a variety of ways. Yeah. Colson Loveland is not just a pick that helps them at tight end and is a fun weapon for Ben Johnson to deploy. He also helps their offensive line because he was a really well-rounded blocker as well.
Yeah, this is a team, and you mentioned Trapilo. I mean, a second-round pick, that means they expect him to start at some point. Maybe not this year. And it's, I don't know. You were literally in a draft room, so I'm just going to put one and one together and guess. But you can't comment that the Rams would have been one of those teams that thought of him highly, which is interesting. They love taking defensive tackles early. Shamar Turner was a second-round pick. That's 3 straight years. I think they hit on Gervon Dexter, but maybe not so much on Zach Pickens a couple of years ago. So we'll see what happens with the Chicago Bears. But it's another roster where you look at it, like, it's very completed. Pour one out for Devin Duvernay and Alamidas Zaccheaus, who saw Luther Burden come in. People never think of, like, the 4th, 5th receivers get knocked down the list. Like, Justin Watson, for instance, signed with the Texans thinking, I got a chance to maybe play here. And then they draft a couple guys, and no one ever thinks about those guys.
Devin Zaccheaus, well, like, those guys have played a lot of football.
That's what I mean.
So, like, they're going to find a spot on somebody's roster.
Okay.
I would imagine.
And it might be this roster. Especially Duvernay, it feels like he's taking his spot.
And I'll say it once again, congratulations to the Chicago Bears for winning the offseason.
Let's go to the Green Bay Packers, who I think have had a good offseason. And I think taking Matthew Golden in the first round was a nice kind of capstone to it. I was really surprised they went back to receiver of all positions in the third round. Shows you how much they really love Savion Williams. I think it's weird news for Jaden Reed, just because I feel like those two guys are a little duplicative. Certainly Dontavian Wicks can't be happy about what happened here. Christian Watson's in the last year of his rookie deal and is not healthy. So they look to build up their receiver group. But I think Golden falling to them is really going to work out. He doesn't need to be a number one receiver, but I think he does more things well, more completely. At least that's the vision of him than maybe anyone else on their roster at wide receiver, where it's all these guys who can do certain things, but maybe can't do everything.
That's why I actually believe he could be the volume one. Now, he's not built like a prototypical, like long, lean perimeter one that we're sort of sometimes used to seeing. But in this scheme and with Matt LaFleur, he can do so many things well and also will be their pre-snap motion player. He has the speed. He has incredibly strong, consistent hands. He was my wide receiver one of this class. And I think volume speaking, he could be the bona fide one that this team has been searching for.
Yeah,
and says very adamantly that, no, they're not looking for a one. No.
Yeah.
Who needs it? Yeah.
And regardless of how things turn out, I think positionally, right, he allows you to do things on offense that maybe having Dobbs there, right, or, they forced all those balls to Wicks like late in the season, where there will be a difference in the quality of talent in that aspect. And I think Savion Williams is kind of a luxury pick.
Yeah, but they have things they need on this roster, like cornerbacks. I'm beginning to think they're going to help fill that need with Jair Alexander, it sounds like they are trying to resolve it. There was that reporting where it was like 99% he's gone, but now it's starting to sound like maybe he's not.
Which I feel like I'll take the call on that, where it's like it just makes more sense instead of giving yourself another need.
Oh no!
Why don't you just keep the player that you have.
I think they're going to.
Oh no, the board didn't fall to us to get a cornerback, and we decided to draft smartly instead of positions that helps us score points. And also, by the way, does that mean we have to make a phone call and fix our relationship and be adults?
That relationship can be fixed
Let's
with money.
do it.
Yeah. Also, keep an eye on Anthony Belton, NC State tackle. They are so good at developing guys. He could be their long-term left tackle, Rasheed Walker, in the last year of his contract. All right, we've done it. We've done 3 divisions. I did a note card per division. I mean, I've never gone that crazy. We're just swimming in note cards today. So we're on the 4th note card, and let's start with Jourdan. I've tried to assign these randomly, but it felt weird if someone else had the Rams. So you were there. You start with the Rams.
Oh, Jordan's talking about the Rams again. Every single move the Rams have made since January tell me they believe they are going to make a legitimate run in 2025. They have Matthew Stafford back on year-to-year terms. They kept their O-line continuity. They added a better communicator at center who Stafford likes working with in Coleman Shelton. Their biggest issue in 2024, they believe they fixed it. It was their run defense. They signed Poona Ford, one of the best run stoppers in the NFL. They added Ty Hamilton and Chris Paul Jr., respectively, at defensive tackle, who will also back up Poona at the nose. And Chris Paul Jr., who's one of my favorite linebacker prospects in the draft, he likes to go by Pooh Paul, and he is an absolute force as a tackler. He does not miss tackles. They added Devontae Adams. They extended Tutu Atwell for just a 1-year deal. And they added Terrence Ferguson, who I believe is going to be a hybrid tight end receiver for them with what McVay wants to do and play more 12 personnel this year. So basically they tweaked and they pruned and they added in little bits, and they only had a 6-member draft class because for the last 2 years, they've completely rebuilt the core of their roster through successful draft classes. Plus, they stockpiled future assets, which tells me that either they're not going to have that second first-round pick by the end of the trade deadline this year, or they're going to combine assets and go after a quarterback for the post-Matthew Stafford era. But before they do, they're going to go all in on making a run while they do still have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Matthew Stafford.
Pooh Paul? I got stuck there.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, but he's going by
Chris
Pooh
Paul Jr.
Paul.
He goes by Pooh Paul, Pooh.
Okay. 5th round pick, so we'll see. The Rams haven't invested a lot at inside linebacker, and
This
what
was
they
their
have
highest.
they haven't stuck in.
This is their first inside linebacker draft pick since Ernest Jones in the 3rd round.
Exactly. And I'm wondering if it's a tacit admission that mistakes were made in the past.
Yeah, but you can't pick up too high, otherwise you're overtly admitting a mistake. They don't do that there.
They have been mentioned as a possible Jalen Ramsey team. Who knows?
Yeah, the money's going to have to go down on their side for that.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that would be after June 1st. They do feel unfinished a little bit at cornerback, even receiver depth, although Ferguson helps their swing tackle. Like, I look at just in terms of, they have the top end players, I think, better than some of these teams. In terms of complete rosters, I actually don't think they're as complete as some of the very best teams in the NFC.
I agree. I always give them into August for this because remember they traded for Kevin Dotson a couple years ago, and then that really shored up their O-line, and then the Jalen Ramsey thing might still happen. I would not sleep on Konate Mumpfield out of Pitt. If you watch his tape, he reminds you of a Rams receiver.
Okay, and bad news for potential Kyren Williams extension. They, drafting a running back right after they drafted Blake Corum the 3rd round last year. Jack was Hunter in the 4th round this year. We'll see if Kyren gets that long-term deal. All right, the Seahawks. To me, looking at their team, my biggest question is just, is Clint Kubiak the dude to make this all happen? Because they're asking a lot of him. It looks great on paper, but he's got to develop this offensive line, which the guys before, like a lot of mid-round picks that weren't maybe performing to their ability. They did pick up Charles Cross's 5th-year option. He's probably the one guy they really feel great about, and now they add Gray's Abel, their first-round pick. You add Cooper Kupp and Valdez Scantling, and they have a late pick people like in Torrey Hunter. It's just like a lot of new pieces. Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, a new quarterback in Sam Darnold, who's had a very up and down career. And this is a team where all their best players are kind of over the middle to me and intermediate guys. When I think Sam Darnold, I think his strength's not intermediate. And it's just, okay, we're going to throw in, my favorite guy, Jalen Milroe. Can he be like a Taysom Hill type of player for them this year as a change of pace? It's a lot on Clint Kubiak. So, can you make this all happen? Because I think it's a sneaky tough job making all of this come together all at once.
Yeah, it's especially for a coach that just left another spot where things kind of fell horribly apart, and there were injuries, and John Schneider's hands feel more on this than their second-year head coach, even though they do get a safety in the second round of Nicky Manwari, who I love, who was a instant impact player when he came on the field at South Carolina. But they get the guard that Seahawks fans have been clamoring for in Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. But the Milroe question, I think he does play. In what capacity? But if he plays too much, then
they've kind of hinted already in their post-draft press conference that he'll play.
Yeah, I look at that coaching staff and I actually immediately connect him to a guy like Jake Peets, who is one of their pass game coordinators, who also has experience coming out of Alabama, that Saban system, that entire ecosystem over there, who, in the past, I would think that when you have two quarterbacks and one with incredibly special upside that Jalen Milroe does have, you really want to make sure you designate an actual developmental program for that player so that they're not just slotting in like a red zone package for you. They're actually honing and developing their skills as a passer as well.
And when I think that's a luxury Drew Lock actually gives you, because Drew Lock, you don't get anything. You don't get any snaps. We're going to count on you to actually be the backup quarterback, but we're just going to trust that your time in this league will carry you through while we focus on our guy Sam and our developmental project, Jalen. Let's go to Patrick with the 49ers.
The 2025 San Francisco 49ers, where it's Kyle wants offensive players. They get 4 offensive players in a draft with 11 picks. They get their first offensive player at pick 138. It's Jordan Watkins. I felt that taking Michael Williams out of Georgia, that was earlier than I expected Michael Williams to go. A lot of folks, myself included, felt that he was the second best pass rusher on that Kirby Smart defense. But it was a position of need that they addressed. They go get Alfred Collins, then Nick Martin. Such a big set of departures, especially veteran departures. A couple of them playing for the Broncos now, that are going to make things tough for Robert Saleh in his return to the spot. But I think we are in the Operation Blame Brock era, where it's going to be, look, guys,
They're pre-blaming Brock.
We can only do so much because Brock Purdy has to get money, and I'm worried. I'm worried.
You
about
think the 49ers are like setting him up to fail or setting him up as an excuse?
The excuse feels like it's out there.
I mean, they're not giving Robert Saleh excuses because they gave him 5 straight defensive picks. So what more do you want?
That was one benefit of getting him back in the building. It's like he's probably one of the few people in the world that could be like, no, Kyle, we're taking defensive players with our first several picks. I love the Alfred Collins match to what Robert Saleh is going to do. Nick Martin also really fits that sort of all gas, no brakes Robert Saleh vibe. And then they went traits heavy on their first pick in Michael Williams. So Michael Williams. So I think this is to be expected when they're trying to sort of rebuild through the draft as they continue to try to win football games. They pay George Kittle. So you can tell that they're trying to rebuild on the fly or do one of these like sprint rebuilds where a lot of these guys who they just drafted, especially with these first 4 or 5 picks, I'm looking all the way down to CJ West. So all their defensive picks, and he was 113 out of Indiana, the defensive tackle. Like, these guys are going to have to contribute. They're going to have to play, and they're going to have to hit that learning curve, which is, I think Robert Saleh is a heck of a coach, but I think you got the right guy in there to help them do it.
Their offense has a lot of talent. It's all guys that were there a year ago. There's no real turnover. They just have to stay healthy, and Kyle's going to have to cook it up. And you mentioned Kittle got paid. Yeah, on Tuesday, they gave him a long-term extension. The details aren't quite out there. It seems a little phony, but certainly guaranteed money for the next couple of years. Well-deserved for George Kittle. He's not going anywhere. We wrap up the division with Jourdan and her favorite team in the NFC West.
Yes.
The Arizona Cardinals. I was just joking, but you seem to take that seriously.
Maybe this year they won't let me down, Greg. This defense is on my radar.
Yes.
We knew heading into free agency that Jonathan Gannon was going to be super aggressive on defense, especially with all those former Eagles players that were going to potentially hit free agency. And after spending the last 2 years with defensive coordinator Nick Rallis experimenting with a very subpar roster, which Patrick has a great nickname for, one of my favorites that I've ever heard, in the search bar. And they've tried to experiment and fiddle around and see what worked and what didn't work. And so now they're ready to show proof of concept, and I am ready to see it. They added 6 defensive players in 7 picks to a group that already included Budda Baker, Calais Campbell, and Josh Sweat. They did so in multiple layers, which I really like when a team drafts this way. They address multiple layers of whether it's the passing game on the offensive side, where they're building out the field in different layers, or on the defensive side, when they're going from Walter Nolan and Jordan Birch up front to taking a flyer on a banged-up Will Johnson, who we also, you and I both together, predicted he would be a fit for the Cardinals, and then Cody Simon
in the
at
first
inside line. I know.
Hey,
we'll let it slide. I need a win.
We get a half credit.
I need a win. The world is hard. I need a win. Cody Simon, the inside linebacker, I also think is like going to be a player who gets more time than people expect. I am excited about this defense. I really am, because we know what they want to try to be on offense, and they need to make sure that they're not just like hitting a wall and petering out, especially in the passing game. But this defense has been sort of anonymously and under the radar, just like operating like a massive science experiment. And I think they're ready to show actually what they can do.
They need to. That's where all the investment went this offseason. I counted like they have at least 7 new major contributors. If you include guys coming back off of injury, like BJ Ojulari, who was a good passer. Where on the offense, the entire starting 11 that's projected, at least in our lights, was on the team last year. And it's not like, they were 11th in DVOA last year. They're counting on just getting better. We've had a lot of like Kyler better prove it years, but this is a big year, I think, for their offense too, because they basically said, we've built a good enough team around Kyler and we want continuity, and go cook. And I think they could.
And I want to say too, and I don't have his contract pulled up in front of me, but I do believe this is technically the last year where he has any guarantees left on his contract, if not the last year actually on that contract. So this is a big year for Kyler.
If you want to talk about the Cardinals, we have 1 timeout remaining. That was the last team here.
I just wanted to say a lot of the Will Johnson injury concerns were projections of like a potential future injury, and like you could do that for the entire NFL. That was weird to me. He had a hamstring, which a lot of guys get a hamstring during draft prep, but it just created this cloud. That's a huge value that they got.
Kyler does have his salary guaranteed next year, but at any point until this year, it would have been completely impossible to move off him. And other than that, his salary is guaranteed next year, which is not a prohibitive salary at all, $36.8 million. There's no more guaranteed.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. And it basically, if for whatever reason they wanted to see if there was a trade market for Kyler, they really couldn't have done it until 2026, and they absolutely could with they would save money next year. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think he is going to play well. I have a feeling this podcast is going to be pretty high on the Cardinals, but we'll see. Maybe Patrick won't.
We like the Cardinals.
Maybe Weiss won't. Maybe Colleen won't. Shout out to Colleen on Good Morning Football all week.
Just soldiering through.
Those are early days.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm learning.
It's just, you got to get up. You got to get up early and go make the donuts. All right, that was it for today's show. We will be back with a show that feels very similar to this one. That'll be going all around talking about the AFC. And yes, looking forward to that, and just looking forward to spending more time with you guys.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Just fill it up a little.
And a privilege.
I was waiting for that thing to go.
You want me to try? Are you going to roll it out?
Like, look, when J.J. McCarthy is on the field and throwing the football to Jordan Addison, that is like an ultimate, actual football is back.